In this video, I'm going to give you 5 tips that I think you want to pay attention to before the February PTR patch goes live in New World. Now, that patch is likely going to be going live next week, probably around the 22nd of February. We've had it confirmed that it's basically definitely not this week, but anytime after Monday next week, I would expect it basically around then. But before that patch goes live, these are 5 things I think you want to pay attention to, which is either going to help you progress or even maybe save you some gold. And the first thing I want to suggest is that you save your gypsum casts. Now, this really only applies if you're trying to get umbral shards from your casts. If you're just trying to get expertise, then do continue to open them. There is no benefit here. But if you're trying to get more umbral shards, then saving your casts and opening them once the patch goes live is a very good idea if you don't need the umbral shards in the interim. Now, why is that? So I don't know the exact range of how much you'll get per like expertise level, but what we do know is that the minimum umbral shards that you get from like a 600 level cast is going from 3 to a massive 100 umbral shards, and the maximum amount of umbral shards is going from 200 to 400. Now obviously it's going to be a sliding scale, and I don't have that sliding scale information to share with you today, but let's say I have something like 7 casts already saved up, and let's say that maybe currently with my expertise being like 610 or something like that, maybe I'm getting 10 or 20 umbral shards. So that ranges from like 70 to 140 umbral shards that I would get from the ones that I currently have if I open them now. But we know that the minimum that I would get if I open them when the patch goes live is actually 700, because I'm going to get a minimum of 100 per cast, and obviously more depending on how high your expertise is. So it's definitely worth saving them if you don't need the umbral shards right this second. The next thing to note is that if you're leveling up some of your professions, it might be worth waiting a week or so. And the reason for that is that the XP required for some of these is going to be decreased by 10%. Now I can't remember these off the top of my head, but these are Arcana, Armoring, Engineering, Furnishing, Jewel Crafting, and Weaponsmithing. They're all going to need 10% less XP, so if you were going to like level them up in the next week, maybe consider if you can just wait a week. It also might be worth storing your tier 3 smelting aptitude chests, because from the next patch the smelting gear is going to be included in those. Tip number 3 is to not pay your tax. Now I know tax and a British person talking to an audience of mostly Americans might be a little bit weird, but basically the amount of tax that you pay on your houses is actually going to be decreased. So right now the percentages range from 1% to 10%. Obviously this is set by the company that controls the towns. That's going to get changed to 0.1% and 1%. And to make up for that, the towns are actually going to get 5 times the amount of gold. But what that basically means, when this patch goes live, there's a very real chance that you could actually get away with paying less tax for your house. So if your housing tax is up for renewal maybe 1 or 2 days before this patch goes live, maybe hold off unless you really need to, because you need those trophies, etc. Tip number 4 is just to store your Outpost Rush chests, because in this next update the rewards that you get from these Outpost Rush chests are being changed. Now it's not getting like massively improved, but quite frankly what you get right now is pretty much quite consistently junk, and what we're going to get is more potential for good items. So the rate of legendary items isn't changing, but the perks that are going to be on all of these items are going to be more suitable for PvP, so there's a better chance that you'll get something for PvP that you actually might use. Basically you might as well store them, because if you open them now you're not going to get anything, and if you open them in the future you might get something. Tip number 5 is if you've got any vials of suspended Azoth, well you might as well sell them at this point. Now in a similar video that I did for the January update, I actually said it was possibly worth holding on to these and then selling them. I was pretty much wrong on that one, and the main reason I was wrong was actually a lot of the vials of suspended Azoth, they were getting a lot of drops from the mutations, so a lot of people didn't really need them. Even though the demand sort of stayed the same, a lot of people had more supply. But as of this patch, what's going to happen is that the amount of Azoth people are using is dropping, and dropping quite considerably. So basically any trip that you make on the map, any teleporting that you do is going to cost you 20 Azoth. Doesn't matter how full you are, it doesn't matter how far away it is, it's going to cost you 20 Azoth. And that means a lot of people are going to have a lot more Azoth just saved up in the inventory. Most people who aren't crafters are probably not ever going to actually need these vials of suspended Azoth, so I strongly suspect that the price of them is going to absolutely plummet if it already hasn't on your server. But yeah, definitely offload these if you were clinging onto them. And one bonus tip here, because of that fast travel being changed so it's only 20 Azoth, I would recommend not sorting out your inventory right now, because when you can actually just teleport to any town with any amount of gear, it's going to be a lot easier to maybe store stuff in different towns when we get the next patch. You know, you can have cutlass keys for all of your mining gear and all your mining materials and that kind of stuff. You can have Morningdale for your dexterity based items. Whatever you want, basically it's going going to be so cheap because it's going to cost you 20 as off there and 20 as off back, that you can take any amount of materials and only pay like 40 as off. Is going to really open up a lot of inventory management just by storing it in different towns. Not the best way of doing inventory management. I still hope that New World like changes that, but in the short term that's going to be pretty decent. So just let your inventory be a mess for 1 week and then sort it out like a good boy or girl. If you want to see me stream New World, then come over to my Twitch. There'll be a link in the description. It would be a pleasure to have you. Other than that, like this video, comment on the video if you've got any other tips that people might want to see, or you're happy with these tips. Have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.